The history of the Philo Power Plant. Well, our story starts with the St. Trace Trail back in 1797 when Zane and McIntyre are searching for a fast inland mail route from Wheeling, West Virginia through Ohio. As they are traveling on the old Mingo Trail towards the area that will become Zanesville, when they get to the area that is known as Norwich today, they remember hearing stories from the past about fast water on the Muskinum River, so they head down to what becomes Duncan Falls, Philo area to check this situation out. As they are examining the river, they don't feel that it's quite what they are looking for to set up a settlement. They head on back towards the area of Zanesville and meet up with their companions and head towards Zanesville. As we all know, Zanesville became a community and a settlement. As we move fast forward a little bit, James Taylor comes into the story. James Taylor was a wealthy individual from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Around 1829, he buys 2 large pieces of ground 9 miles downriver from Zanesville. On the east side, in 1930, he builds a large home on top of the hill, which we call today the Mound House. He also built a horse and dairy barn. He also decides to build on the west side, and he builds a grist mill and a sawmill. He has a few men dig a canal to supply the water for these mills. Later in time, a salt mill was drilled and he installed a ferry across the Muskinum River. A few years later, a glass house was put in. In 1832, Taylor has a town laid out, which he calls Taylorsville. A few years later, on the east side, he has the community of Duncan Falls laid out, which now is having a grist mill and a woolen mill built. Sadly, James Taylor fades away, broke and penniless. He had to sell off all that he had built. He dies at an early age at 59. So in 1829, due to the new Ohio Canal system, which is being started at Dresden, the state of Ohio is getting the Muskinum River ready for riverboat traffic by building dams and canal locks. They first build Sims Creek and Zanesville, and by 1940, they're at Taylorsville, and it is the next one to have a new dam and a mile-long canal installed. Later, around 1852, a study was made on the canal system from Marietta to Dresden. The report states that the canal was too long and the gates did not work very well. So a proposal was made to move and build a new lock closer to the dam. At the same time, in 1852 or 53, a railroad is started to be built on the west side of the river. The Zanesville and Ohio River Railroad was pleased to come to Taylorsville and Eagleport. They also brought the telegraph. So Taylorville is one of the first communities to get a U.S. post office. But due to the fact that Ohio already had 2 other Taylorvilles, the post office went ahead and changed the name to Philo. So in 1870, the building of the new canal begins, and at Eagleport, where the Roberty Lock Dam is, they had to put a 2-foot cap on top of the dam to raise the water level of the river 2 feet higher so that the riverboats could go through the narrows because it was too dangerous. But the new canal was only in service for 10 years when the canal walls were in danger of falling into the river. So in 1888, canal walls were dismantled and rebuilt with hydrocrete cement from Germany, and the state also had a lockmaster's house built at this time. When this project was finished, the old canal was not used much. In 1890, the swing bridge was installed and all was well on the river till the 1913 flood. There have been many floods on the Muskinum River, but nothing like the 1913 flood. It rained day and night for 3.5 days. On Tuesday of that week in Zanesville, the Muskinum River was rising a foot an hour. By Thursday, the 3rd day, the wide bridge was underwater at 51 feet 8 inches. At Philo, the river was 18 foot high and a mile wide. The lockmaster's house had floodwaters up to the attic window. At Gaysport, houses have been swept off their foundations, but a few days later, the floodwaters went back into its banks. The American Gas and Electric Company was an early giant in the electricity utility field service. They had broke new ground in developing power plants using steam at high pressures and temperatures to drive turbines with great efficiency and to lower the cost. The Windsor power plant on the Ohio River was the model for the Philo plant. So in 1922, the Ohio Power Company had acquired the entire island and bought up the water rights of the discontinued mill on the head of the island and also held the rights on Duncan Falls site. Construction began in 1922, and the broccoli farm and the orchard on Philo Island were soon to be superseded by the largest power plant in the United States. Before we go any further on our video of the history of the Philo Power Plant, I would like to share a little background history. Some 9 years ago, I came into the possession of the original photographs of the Philo Power Plant. There's some rare 35 photos that were black and white photos that I have cleaned up and colorized so that you can get the most of this historic story. I have always been interested in the Philo Power Plant due to the fact that I moved into the area in 1964. And like most folks in that area of Philo, Duncan Falls, we were too close to the plant to really appreciate the history that is now gone. I really miss the plant. I think about it every time I come to Philo, Duncan Falls area. I have taken a lot of time to research and document this story, and I wanted it to be right. So I hope you enjoy this historical documentary of the Philo Power Plant, which we found out not long ago that it was one of the world's largest power plants, and it was in our own backyard. Thank you. One of the first things that needed to happen was the Corps of Engineers were going to have to come in and shut off the north and south end of the canal to turn it over to the power company. So around 1919, 1920, the Corps had to come in, dam up the canal entrance. They built a massive structure some 50 foot high from the river floor to the top of the structure and some 500 foot long to let plenty of intake water into the steam power plant. And while this was going on, crews are now underway removing the old lock gates. Here on January 12, 1923, the sleepy town of Philo, Taylorsville, is in the background as men and crew lay miles of railroad tracks to transform the ground from a farm to an industrial giant. Next, here we see the mile-long canal in waiting for its new future. Many laborers, masons, and concrete men, and other trades working hard to get the groundwork of the new foundation of the massive structure in place. In the background, we see new homes being built in Philo due to the construction of the Philo Power Plant. Here on May 23rd, we have the old canal bridge and the entrance to the Philo Power Plant. Men are working on the canal bank with a miniature train hauling dirt from the bank. On November 14th, 1923, men are working on installing the new head gate of the old canal. And a little ways down from the head gate, men are working on the metal span bridge. This was a very important step of the construction so that they could get railroad trains full of materials and steel supplies to the main work site. You will see the railroad tracks in the river bottom. They were used for the steam-powered cranes. Here we show a steam-powered crane hanging steel on the new structure. Boxcars and gondola cars full of heavy steel components waiting to be installed on the main frame. Here we see Unit 1 being built on the steel structure, and on the west side of the building, the intake water department, which will allow thousands of gallons of water to come in to the plant from the canal. Snow and spring rains in the intake canal. In the distance, we see two water towers being built. that one day will hold the intake water. 20 massive concrete piers march down the center of the storage area to support the incoming rail lines, in-rail cars, and the tracks for the traveling gantry spanning over the 300,000 tons of wet coal. On the riverside, a dock was constructed to receive barges full of coal and store 100,000 tons in dry storage. 2 tandem steam engines are headed for Philo, Ohio, pulling 88 coal cars full of coal, which will be emptied at wet storage for future use in the power plant. Several conveyor systems move stored coal through the crusher plant into the boiler rooms. So in the spring of 1925, Unit 1 is fired up for the first time. These employees were the first employees to work on Unit 1. By 1940, all 6 units are online, making steam power electric for the community in one of the world's largest power plants at that time. In 1953, American Gas and Electric Company entered an agreement with General Electric Company and Babcock and Wilcox Engineering Company to build a new Unit 6. So in 1953, engineering and design began, and the construction process began at the Philo plant. This meant that Unit 1, which was online since 1925, would be replaced with the new Unit 6. This one unit can make as much electricity as all 6 of the other units combined. So August 1st, 1957, Philo 6, the first supercritical high-pressure steam electric generation unit, is declared commercially operational. It runs until June 1st, 1979, when the Philo Power plant is taken offline and getting ready for dismantling, which took place in 1984. So 57 years later, all that remains is the power grid, wet storage pylons, and parts of the old canal system. As a guy who grew up seeing the power plant and alloy, they may be gone, but in my mind I still see them, and I bet many other folks still do too. I hope you enjoyed this video of the Philo Duncan Falls area and the power plant. Thank you so much.